I collected them for 3 months, the girl said. Daniel Harper looked up slowly from the papers he had been reviewing. She stepped closer to the table and placed the bag down carefully, like it contained something fragile. Daniel glanced at the bag, then at her. "What's inside the bag?" he asked. "Evidence," she said. "Evidence of what?" "My mom didn't steal the money," the girl said. "They said she did, but she didn't. My name is Annie. My mom works here." Daniel studied her face for a long moment, then leaned back slightly in his chair. "Why me?" he asked. "Why bring this to me instead of going to the police?" "Because the police already came," she said, "and the hotel already decided. And the case has been on hold for 3 months. They said there isn't enough proof. But I have proof. I just needed time to collect it." Daniel's eyes moved back to the plastic bag. He opened it and began taking things out one by one. Work schedules, laundry receipts with printed timestamps, room cleaning reports, printed sheets with camera time records, and several pages filled with careful handwriting and colored lines, a timeline. He looked up again. "You collected all this?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "For 3 months?" "Yes, sir." Daniel tapped the stack lightly. "Where did you get all this?" "Annie. Work schedules, elevator logs, camera times. These aren't easy things to get. My mom kept copies of her schedules at home," Annie said. "The laundry room prints receipts with the time on them, so I kept those. The security guard showed me the elevator screen a few times when I brought him coffee, and the camera times were on the report they gave my mom, so I wrote them down before they took the paper back." Daniel watched her very carefully as she spoke. "The case has been on hold for 3 months, Annie continued. "They said there wasn't enough proof to arrest her, but not enough proof to say she didn't do it. So she lost her job, and the case just stayed there, not moving, like we were just waiting for something bad to happen." Daniel didn't respond immediately. He flipped through the crayon timeline again. Rooms, times, arrows, elevator movements, all organized with surprising precision. "Crayons don't change elevator logs," Annie said quietly. Daniel looked up at her again when she said that. After a moment, he turned slightly to his assistant. "Call Reynolds. Tell him to come to the lobby. Now." His assistant nodded and walked away quickly. Annie stood still, her hands now clasped together in front of her, watching Daniel's face, trying to see if he believed her. A few minutes later, the hotel general manager, Mr. Reynolds, hurried across the lobby. He slowed down when he saw Daniel sitting with the girl and papers spread all over the table. "Mr. Harper," Reynolds said, "you wanted to see me?" Daniel gestured to the chair. "Sit down, Reynolds." Reynolds sat. Daniel slid the papers toward him. "Do you know what this is?" Reynolds looked at the documents, then at Annie, then back at Daniel. "It looks like documents from the incident 3 months ago, sir." "The incident," Daniel repeated. "You mean the theft from the VIP suite, the one where a housekeeper was accused, the one that has been on hold for 3 months?" "Yes, sir," Reynolds said carefully. Daniel's voice stayed calm, but it had changed. It was colder now. "Why do I not know about this?" Reynolds cleared his throat. "Sir, at that time you were overseas for the Singapore acquisition, and then in New York for the financing meetings. Mrs. Harper was handling several internal matters here at the hotel, including this situation." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly. "My wife handled a theft investigation involving one of our employees and a VIP guest, and no one thought I should be informed?" Reynolds spoke slowly, choosing every word. "Mrs. Harper reviewed the internal reports with legal and security. There were some complications. The guest was very important, and the insurance company became involved. There were a few issues with the timeline and the camera outage, and legal advised that we pause the case until everything could be verified properly. That is why the case has been delayed." "For 3 months, Daniel said. "Yes, sir. There were additional problems that came up. Mrs. Harper decided it was safer to hold the case rather than make a decision without certainty." Daniel leaned back in his chair and looked at Annie, then back at Reynolds. "And during those 3 months, Daniel said slowly, this child collected work schedules, elevator logs, laundry receipts, and built a timeline, while our hotel, our legal team, and our management team paused the case. Reynolds did not answer. Daniel picked up the crayon timeline and held it up slightly. "Do you see this, Reynolds?" Daniel asked. "Do you see what this is?" "Yes, sir," Reynolds said quietly. "This," Daniel said, tapping the paper, "is a child doing our investigation for us." Daniel put the paper down carefully and looked at Annie again. "For 3 months," he said. "You've been collecting proof because you believe your mother is innocent." Annie nodded once. Daniel held her gaze for a long moment, then said quietly, "In this world, Annie, the truth is not what people say happened. The truth is what you can prove happened." He turned back to Reynolds. "Reopen the file," Daniel said. "Pull every keycard record, every elevator log, every camera backup, every staff schedule, and every incident report from that day. I want everything on my desk tonight." "Yes, sir," Reynolds said immediately. Daniel then looked back at Annie. "You spent 3 months collecting proof," he said. "Now it's my turn." Daniel Harper didn't hesitate. The weight of 3 months of inaction, compounded by the meticulous evidence Annie had collected, left him no room to delay. He looked at Reynolds and said, "Start the investigation immediately. I want everything pulled and verified. Today. No exceptions." Reynolds swallowed, quickly straightening his posture. "Yes, sir. I'll alert IT and security to prioritize every log and camera backup related to the 12th floor VIP suite. All housekeeping schedules and keycard entries will be cross-checked." Daniel nodded, his gaze shifting back to Annie. "You've done something remarkable. But now, it's my turn to ensure the adults do their job. From this moment, nothing is put on hold. We find the truth, and we find it correctly." Annie's eyes widened slightly, a mix of relief and cautious optimism flickering across her face. You mean it?" Daniel leaned forward. "I mean it. Every record, every timestamp, every receipt you've collected, we will verify it all, and any discrepancy will be addressed. We start now, Annie." Reynolds picked up his phone and started giving instructions, his fingers flying over the screen as he contacted the security team, IT staff, and the internal audit department. "IT," he instructed, "prioritize backups for the 12th floor cameras. All keycard logs from the last 3 months, pull them immediately. Security, get the housekeeping records and timestamps verified. Every single detail. Double-checked." Daniel watched as the hotel's internal mechanisms began to shift into motion, and he spoke to Annie quietly. "You've given me the evidence. Now I'm giving you my promise. The investigation begins today. No delays, no excuses." Annie nodded, gripping the edges of the bag, feeling the first real sense that her mother, Sarah Johnson, might finally be vindicated. Reynolds returned a few minutes later, holding a tablet and a stack of printed sheets. "We've started compiling a detailed cross-reference between your evidence and the hotel's official records. Preliminary results show some inconsistencies already, Mr. Harper. The elevator logs, housekeeping schedules, and laundry receipts don't align with the original report in several places." Daniel examined the first sheets. Each discrepancy, no matter how minor, was crucial. "Good. Keep going. IT, make sure every camera feed is backed up. We need the original footage, not summaries. I want to see everything exactly as it happened. And Reynolds," he added, "document every step. Annie's timeline will guide us, but we need independent verification." "Yes, sir," Reynolds said, nodding sharply. Annie bent closer, pointing to her crayon timeline. "See here? My mom left room 1208 at 2:10, then went to the laundry at 2:16. But the report says she was in room 1216 at 2:18. The elevator logs show the guest elevator moving at that exact time, and housekeeping doesn't use that one." Daniel studied the timeline carefully, then looked at the keycard logs coming in from IT. Annie had been precise. Every line of her timeline matched exactly with the partial records now arriving on his tablet. "Reynolds," Daniel said, his voice firm, "this is serious. If Annie's observations hold up, then the original report incorrectly accused Sarah Johnson. That cannot continue. I want a full investigation completed today. No pauses, no delays, no waiting on anyone. Everyone who touches this, I need them accountable." Reynolds nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll start with housekeeping schedules, keycard logs, laundry timestamps, and then move to camera footage. Every detail will be verified against Annie's records. Daniel turned to Annie. I need you to stay close. If you notice anything else that doesn't match your notes, tell us immediately. Your work has been invaluable, but we can't rely solely on your memory or your notes. Verification is critical. Annie's small hands tightened around her bag. I'll watch everything, she said. I won't let them say my mom did something she didn't. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and leave a comment telling us where you are watching from. Your support helps this story reach more people, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel to hear more stories about courage, justice, and kindness. Daniel offered a small nod of approval. Good. We start now, Annie. Today, your mother's name gets cleared if the evidence supports it. No excuses. Reynolds, already tapping commands into the tablet, spoke over his shoulder. IT team is starting the retrieval of all camera footage, including backups. Security will pull keycard logs for the 12th floor and cross-reference them with housekeeping schedules and laundry receipts. We'll flag any anomalies immediately. Daniel folded his hands and observed the action, thinking about how 3 months of inertia had threatened to ruin Sarah Johnson's life. A simple pause by management had compounded into a potential disaster. But now, with Annie's evidence and a commitment to immediate action, the tide was turning. Hours passed as they worked methodically. Annie guided Daniel and Reynolds through each piece of evidence she had collected. Every receipt, every schedule, every camera timestamp was cross-checked against official hotel records. As discrepancies emerged, Daniel felt the full weight of the oversight, the lapse of 3 months in which an innocent woman had been left suspended, vulnerable, and without recourse. Reynolds approached Daniel with a look of cautious optimism. Mr. Harper, initial verification is complete. The discrepancies are clear. The elevator logs and housekeeping schedules directly contradict the original report. Sarah Johnson could not have been in the VIP room at the time the theft occurred. Daniel studied the printouts. Every line, every timestamp, every annotation matched Annie's timeline. She had been right all along. He looked down at Annie. You did this. You made this possible. Your mother's innocence can finally be proven. Annie smiled faintly. Relief mingled with exhaustion. I just wanted them to see the truth. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on the timeline. And they will. Now, we follow through. I want the full camera review next. Every backup restored, every angle checked. Today, Sarah Johnson gets the investigation she deserved 3 months ago. Reynolds nodded again. Yes, sir. We'll get it done immediately. Daniel looked at Annie one last time before turning back to the unfolding investigation. We start now. No delays. No excuses. Justice waits for no one. Not even 3 months of pause. Annie set her bag down and watched as the team went to work. She had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. Now, with Daniel Harper taking immediate action, the truth had a chance to finally come to light. By mid-morning, the hotel's internal investigation was in full swing. Annie remained close to Daniel Harper, quietly observing as Reynolds and his team cross-referenced every piece of evidence she had collected against the hotel's official records. Work schedules, elevator logs, laundry receipts, keycard entries, and even notes from housekeeping supervisors were being meticulously compared. Each discrepancy she had identified was beginning to take shape as a concrete picture, revealing that her mother, Sarah Johnson, could not have been responsible for the theft of the VIP guests' cash and jewelry. Daniel leaned back in his chair, watching the flurry of activity with a focused intensity. The staff, initially hesitant about involving a child in a serious investigation, now worked with a sense of urgency, knowing that the credibility of the hotel and the career of an innocent employee were at stake. Annie pointed to a line on her timeline. See here, she said. This shows my mom leaving room 1208 at 2:10, going to the laundry room at 2:16. The original report says she was in room 1216 at 2:18, which isn't possible. Daniel examined the timeline and the receipts again, nodding. Every note matched perfectly with the logs that were now appearing on the tablet Reynolds held. Reynolds adjusted his tie nervously. I've already started flagging anomalies, Mr. Harper. So far, elevator logs, housekeeping schedules, and laundry receipts contradict the original report in several critical ways. Daniel looked down at Annie. You've done a remarkable job, but we can't rely solely on these notes. We need verification from all official records. Every camera feed restored. Every timestamp checked against the reports. Yes, sir, Annie said, gripping her bag slightly. Daniel turned back to Reynolds. I want the IT team to restore all camera backups, no matter how old, and verify them against these logs. Start with the 12th floor suite, then expand outward if necessary. I want every angle checked. No shortcuts. This is not just about correcting a report, it's about justice for Sarah Johnson. Reynolds nodded and left immediately, making calls to IT, security, and the audit department. Daniel returned his attention to Annie. You understand how serious this is, don't you? He asked. Yes, sir, Annie said, her voice small but firm. I want the truth to come out. I want them to see that my mom didn't do this. Daniel studied her for a long moment. There was something in her determination that reminded him of his own childhood struggles. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, learning early on that being overlooked or underestimated could make life unfairly difficult. He saw that same tenacity in Annie. As the hours passed, the first batches of records came in. Keycard entries showed Sarah Johnson entering and leaving rooms on the 12th floor, consistent with her work schedule, but conflicting with the times noted in the original theft report. Elevator logs confirmed Annie's observations. The guest elevator was in use at times that made it impossible for her mother to have accessed the VIP suite. Laundry receipts further corroborated her timeline. The pieces were falling into place. Daniel watched as Annie carefully pointed out each matching discrepancy. This one, she said, tapping a printed receipt, shows she signed out laundry at 2:15. She couldn't have been in room 1216 at 2:18. It doesn't line up. Reynolds leaned over, scrutinizing the evidence. He's right, Daniel. The time frames just don't add up. Whoever filed the original report must have made assumptions, not verified facts. Daniel nodded, feeling a mixture of frustration and relief. 3 months of delay, Reynolds. 3 months where an innocent employee was suspended, waiting for someone to look at the facts. This ends now. Annie's small hands rested on the edge of the table as she watched the adults work. She felt a cautious optimism, a sense that the long hours she had spent observing, recording, and comparing evidence were finally being taken seriously. She had been silent for months, quietly gathering proof, and now it mattered. Reynolds turned to Daniel, tablet in hand. I've also started restoring camera feeds from the 12th floor. Some segments were deleted or corrupted, but IT has backups stored off-site. We can verify each frame against the keycard logs and Annie's timeline. Daniel's brow furrowed. Good. We need to make sure nothing is missing. Every camera angle must be accounted for. If Sarah Johnson was in the wrong place at the wrong time in the original report, we need to prove she wasn't. Clearly and definitively, Annie pointed at a specific segment of the timeline. Look here. Between 2:10 and 2:18, the elevator log shows the service elevator moving from the laundry area to the lobby. My mom never used the guest elevator. She can't be in the VIP suite at the same time. Daniel studied the logs as they streamed in from IT. Annie's notes aligned perfectly. Each timestamp corroborated what she had recorded over 3 months. This is precise, he said. She's right. The evidence supports her claim. The sense of urgency in the office intensified as more camera feeds were restored. Security personnel, who had initially doubted the relevance of a child's timeline, now examined every frame meticulously. Each elevator movement, hallway shot, and doorway entry was cross-referenced with keycard usage and housekeeping schedules. Daniel turned to Annie once more. You've done something extraordinary here. You've given us the framework to uncover the truth. Now it's our job to make sure the official records confirm it. Yes, sir, Annie said, a faint smile breaking across her face. She felt the first real sense of hope that her mother, Sarah Johnson, would finally have her name cleared. As mid-afternoon approached, the preliminary review of camera footage revealed clear evidence supporting Annie's timeline. One frame after another, her mother's movements were confirmed. She was cleaning rooms in accordance with her schedule, never entering the VIP suite during the time of the alleged theft. Each frame aligned perfectly with receipts and keycard logs. Daniel leaned back, folding his arms. This is more than just a correction to a report. This is vindication. Reynolds, make sure every piece of evidence is documented, time-stamped, and cross-verified. I want a formal record of the discrepancies and how they support Sarah Johnson's innocence. Reynolds nodded, already typing notes into the system. Yes, sir. I'll prepare a comprehensive report with all logs, receipts, and camera footage attached. It'll be ready for your review within the hour. Daniel looked at Annie, who had been quietly observing the entire process. You've done your part. Now we ensure the adults do theirs. Today, Sarah Johnson gets the investigation she should have had 3 months ago. Annie's hands clenched slightly around the edge of her bag, a mixture of nerves and anticipation. For the first time, she felt that her months of work, her dedication, her careful tracking of every detail were about to make a difference. The adults were finally paying attention, and the truth was finally within reach. Outside the hotel, the city moved on in its usual rhythm, unaware that inside, a miscarriage of justice was being corrected. Inside, Daniel, Annie, and Reynolds worked together to ensure that every piece of evidence was accounted for, every discrepancy confirmed, and every official record verified. For Annie and her mother, this was the turning point. 3 months of waiting, worrying, and collecting evidence were culminating in a moment that could finally restore justice. As the afternoon sun streamed through the lobby windows, Daniel looked at Annie. Stay close. Watch everything. If you notice anything that doesn't match your timeline, speak up. Today, we end the pause. Today, the truth comes out. Annie nodded firmly. She was ready. She had waited 3 months for this moment. And now, with Daniel Harper taking immediate action, her mother's name would finally be cleared. The investigation had shifted into high gear. Daniel Harper stood at the edge of the operations room, arms crossed, watching as Reynolds, the IT team, and security personnel worked in unison to verify every detail of Annie's meticulously collected evidence. The hum of computers, the clicking of keyboards, and the occasional murmur of discussions filled the room. For the first time since the incident 3 months ago, it felt like the truth had a chance to emerge untainted. Annie remained close to Daniel, her eyes scanning the monitors, her small hands clutching her bag. She had spent countless hours noting every detail: schedules, receipts, elevator logs, even the smallest discrepancies she had noticed. Now, seeing the investigation proceed with such urgency, she felt a cautious optimism creeping in. Daniel turned toward her. You've been precise, Annie. Now we'll see if the official records confirm what you've documented. Yes, sir, Annie said, her voice steady. Everything I have should match. Reynolds walked over, holding a tablet filled with keycard data and security camera logs. Mr. Harper, we've started matching the keycard entries to Annie's timeline. There are already notable inconsistencies in the original report. Sarah Johnson could not have accessed the VIP suite at the times listed. The elevator logs, too, support her schedule. Daniel nodded, studying the screen. He could see the meticulous nature of Annie's work reflected in the data. Each timestamp she had noted lined up with the hotel's own records. It was remarkable. Bring up the camera footage from the 12th floor, Daniel instructed. The IT technician immediately started pulling files from backup servers. We need to cross-check every frame with the elevator logs, keycards, and Annie's timeline. Nothing can be overlooked. As the first clips loaded on the large monitor, Daniel motioned for Annie to step closer. Watch closely, he said. Anything you notice that doesn't match your notes, tell us immediately. Annie leaned forward, her eyes narrowing in concentration. The footage showed hallways, service elevators, and the entrances to guest rooms. Her mother, Sarah Johnson, appeared in several clips, moving efficiently from room to room, performing her housekeeping duties, signing laundry receipts, and never once entering the VIP suite. See here, Annie said, pointing at a timestamp. This is when the original report says my mom was in the VIP suite, but she's clearly in the laundry area at that exact time. The service elevator log confirms it. Daniel's jaw tightened. Exactly. This is what we needed. Reynolds, mark this discrepancy and highlight it in the formal report. Every instance where the original report conflicts with the verified data should be documented. Reynolds nodded, quickly making annotations on the tablet. Yes, sir. I'm cross-referencing all anomalies with the timeline Annie provided. By the end of today, we should have a complete report ready for review. Daniel turned his attention to the security team. I want all camera feeds restored, every backup checked. Make sure nothing is missing. We need the entire 12th floor, and all common areas included. Every elevator ride, every hallway shot, every doorway monitored. No gaps. Complete transparency. The security head nodded. Understood, Mr. Harper. We're already coordinating with IT to ensure all frames are recovered. Any discrepancies will be flagged immediately. Annie continued to watch, occasionally pointing out minor details she had noted during her own investigation. Here, she said, indicating a hallway shot. This shows someone entering the VIP suite just as the cameras supposedly went offline. That's when the theft happened. But my mom isn't in this frame at all. Look, she's still on the service elevator. Daniel leaned closer to the monitor, analyzing the footage. Annie was correct. The original report had listed Sarah Johnson as the last person entering the VIP room. But the video clearly contradicted that. Someone else had accessed the suite during the window when the cameras supposedly failed. This is significant, Daniel said. It proves the original report was inaccurate. Reynolds, compile every instance where the timeline contradicts the records. Include timestamps, keycard data, and camera footage. We're going to reconstruct the sequence of events with precise verification. Hours passed as the team worked tirelessly. Annie guided them through her notes, identifying timestamps and cross-referencing them with the digital logs. Daniel observed, occasionally offering direction, ensuring nothing was overlooked. The hotel staff, initially skeptical of the child's involvement, now treated her observations with the utmost seriousness. By mid-afternoon, a clear pattern emerged. Elevator usage, housekeeping logs, laundry receipts, and security footage all corroborated Annie's account. Sarah Johnson had followed her schedule precisely and had no opportunity to enter the VIP suite during the alleged theft window. The inconsistencies in the original report were undeniable. Daniel looked at Annie. You've given us the foundation to prove your mother's innocence. Every record we've reviewed so far confirms your work. Annie smiled faintly, the first real sign of relief since the investigation began. Reynolds approached with a tablet displaying the compiled discrepancies. Mr. Harper, we've documented all anomalies. Keycard entries, elevator logs, and camera footage all support Annie's timeline. Sarah Johnson's movements are entirely consistent with her housekeeping duties. No evidence places her in the VIP suite at the time of the theft. Daniel exhaled, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. This is more than just a correction to a report, he said. This is vindication. Annie, your mother's name will be cleared. Annie's eyes glistened. Thank you, she said softly. I just wanted the truth to be seen. Daniel turned to Reynolds. Prepare the full report for legal review. Include every piece of evidence, every timestamp, every verified camera frame. I want it ready for the VIP guest, insurance company, and internal audit. This is not just about clearing Sarah Johnson. It's about restoring confidence in our processes. Yes, sir, Reynolds said, already typing rapidly. Daniel looked back at Annie. Stay nearby. We may need your observations for any follow-up questions. Today, we correct 3 months of inaction, and we ensure your mother's innocence is formally recognized. Annie nodded, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. She had spent months quietly collecting evidence, while the adults ignored the case. Now, with Daniel's immediate intervention, everything she had worked for was finally gaining traction. Outside the office, life in the hotel continued. Guests checked out and entered. Elevators carried travelers up and down, and the cafe's faint aroma of coffee and pastries filled the air. Inside, however, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. Every detail was scrutinized, every discrepancy accounted for, and every record verified. By late afternoon, the investigation had reached a pivotal point. The compiled data clearly demonstrated that Sarah Johnson could not have committed the theft. The original report's errors were evident. and the misidentification of her mother as the culprit had been corrected in the verified documentation. Daniel turned to Annie. "You've done something extraordinary," he said. "You've provided the evidence that allows us to restore justice. Now, we ensure it is recognized by everyone involved." Annie's hands rested lightly on the edge of the table. "I just wanted them to see the truth," she said again. Daniel smiled faintly. "And they will. Today, your mother's name is cleared, and no one will be able to say otherwise." The work was far from over, but a decisive turning point had been reached. Annie's dedication, combined with Daniel's authority and immediate action, had finally set the stage for justice. For the first time in 3 months, hope replaced uncertainty, and the path to vindicating Sarah Johnson was clear. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, the team continued to verify the remaining camera footage and finalize the detailed report. Annie, beside Daniel, felt a quiet pride. She had not only gathered the evidence, she had guided the adults to see the truth. Today, she realized, was the beginning of setting things right. The afternoon light streamed through the lobby windows as Daniel Harper paced slowly, reviewing the preliminary reports generated by Reynolds and the IT team. Annie stayed close, clutching her bag, watching every detail unfold with an intensity beyond her years. Each new set of data, every verified timestamp, reinforced the growing certainty that her mother, Sarah Johnson, had been falsely accused. Daniel's decision to act immediately had set the investigation into motion. But the next steps would require more than just data. They would require understanding exactly how the discrepancies had arisen. Reynolds approached, tablet in hand, displaying a side-by-side comparison of the original report and the verified records. "Mr. Harper, the discrepancies are significant," he said. "Keycard entries, elevator logs, and camera footage all contradict the initial claim that Sarah Johnson accessed the VIP suite during the theft. The timing simply doesn't match." Daniel nodded. "Good. This confirms what Annie documented. Now, I want a deeper analysis. Check for any anomalies beyond what she noticed. Every access point, every potential loophole. I want to know if anyone else could have entered the suite during the window when the theft occurred." "Yes, sir," Reynolds said. He quickly instructed the IT team to run a full cross-reference between the VIP suite keycard records, elevator usage logs, and all housekeeping entries over the past 3 months. Annie leaned closer to Daniel, pointing at a section of her timeline. "See here? Between 2:10 and 2:18, the service elevator was moving consistently with my mom's duties. She could not have been in room 1216 at 2:18. Daniel studied her notes and then glanced at Reynolds. "Make a note of this. This window is critical. If the original report says she was there but she couldn't have been, someone either made an error or intentionally manipulated the records." Reynolds tapped on his tablet. "I've started compiling potential access logs for anyone with master key privileges or override permissions. That includes security, management, and a handful of senior staff." Daniel's gaze shifted to Annie. "You've been incredibly thorough. Stay close. If you see any inconsistency, no matter how small, tell us immediately. Every observation could be important." Annie nodded. "I will. I've been watching all of this for months. I can spot patterns." The IT team worked swiftly, pulling up camera backups from every angle of the 12th floor, the service corridors, and even the stairwells. Security footage showed Sarah Johnson following her normal housekeeping routine, entering and leaving rooms in a consistent pattern, never stepping near the VIP suite at the time in question. Elevator logs confirmed the movement of service elevators, which Sarah had used exclusively. Keycard entries matched Annie's timeline perfectly. The picture was becoming undeniable. Daniel motioned for Reynolds to join him at the monitor. "Cross-check everything. Every entry, every camera angle, every receipt," Annie documented. "Create a timeline of events from the morning of the alleged theft to the conclusion of her shift. I want it airtight." Reynolds nodded and began running additional queries. Within an hour, a detailed timeline emerged, highlighting every discrepancy in the original report and aligning the verified data with Annie's observations. The anomalies were not small. The original accusation against Sarah Johnson could not hold up against this new evidence. Annie pointed at a monitor showing a hallway camera. "Look, This is when the original report says my mom was in the VIP suite. But here, she's cleaning room 1208 and then moving to the laundry area. The elevator log confirms it. Daniel leaned closer. Exactly. This proves what we suspected. Whoever filed the initial report either made an assumption or had access to manipulate the records. Reynolds, I want a list of all individuals who could have overridden logs or entered the VIP suite using a master key during this period. Yes, sir, Reynolds said. I'll compile it immediately. As the team continued, Daniel reviewed Annie's evidence one last time, ensuring that every paper, receipt, and timeline entry was accounted for. He could see the impact her months of meticulous work had made. A child had accomplished what the management and security teams had failed to do in 3 months. Annie, observing the monitors, suddenly noticed something. Sir, look at this frame. Someone is entering the VIP suite at 2:12. They're wearing gloves and using a master key. That's when the cameras supposedly went offline. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Good catch. Reynolds, flag this frame and identify everyone with that key at that time. Trace their access and movements. Reynolds tapped rapidly on his tablet. Pulling access logs now, cross-referencing with camera footage. Daniel turned to Annie. You've done your part. Now it's up to us to trace this anomaly. If this was a deliberate manipulation, we need to know who had the opportunity and the means. Hours passed. Each new discovery added clarity to the investigation. Keycard logs, elevator usage, and camera footage converged, painting a consistent picture. Sarah Johnson had followed her routine faithfully and had no opportunity to enter the VIP suite during the alleged theft window. The evidence Annie had collected months earlier was now validated by the hotel's own records. Daniel looked at Annie, a hint of admiration in his eyes. Your timeline was accurate. Every detail aligns perfectly with our verified records. This is more than impressive. It's decisive. Annie felt a small surge of pride. I wanted them to see the truth, she said softly. Daniel nodded, and they will. Reynolds, prepare a formal report documenting every discrepancy and supporting Annie's timeline. We need this to be officially recognized and sent to the legal and insurance teams. I want every detail, timestamp, and camera frame attached. This report should leave no room for doubt. Reynolds nodded, already compiling the documents. Understood, Mr. Harper. It will be ready shortly. Daniel glanced at the monitors again, watching the team continue to restore camera footage, verify keycard logs, and cross-reference all housekeeping entries. The process was painstaking, but necessary. Every piece of evidence would be accounted for, ensuring that Sarah Johnson's innocence could be formally recognized. Annie stayed close, noting every movement on the monitors, every discrepancy that appeared, offering her insight when something seemed off. Daniel realized that her careful observations, coupled with the immediate and thorough action of the hotel's team, had transformed what could have been another unresolved accusation into a clear path toward justice. By late afternoon, the preliminary analysis was complete. Daniel reviewed the data, confirming that all of Annie's key observations matched the hotel's verified records. The elevator logs, keycard entries, housekeeping schedules, and camera footage all corroborated her timeline. Sarah Johnson had not been in the VIP suite during the alleged theft. Daniel turned to Annie. You've done an extraordinary job. Now, the hotel will officially recognize your mother's innocence. We've documented everything, and the investigation will be submitted immediately to the necessary parties. Today, justice is within reach. Annie's small hands clenched the edge of her bag, a mixture of nerves and relief washing over her. She had spent months collecting evidence in silence, and now, with Daniel's immediate action, the truth was finally emerging. Outside, the city continued its afternoon rhythm, but inside the hotel, the long pause of 3 months was ending. Annie and her mother's story was finally being told, verified, and prepared to be recognized by the adults who had once ignored it. For the first time in months, hope and resolution were tangible, and the path to clearing Sarah Johnson's name was now clear. Daniel Harper sat back in his chair and regarded Annie. Stay nearby, he said. The next steps may require your insight. We need to ensure nothing is overlooked. Today, We correct a wrong that should never have lasted this long, and we make sure your mother's name is fully restored." Annie nodded, feeling the weight of her months of effort finally bearing fruit. The investigation, which had started with her crayon timeline and small notes, was now fully underway, and she could finally see the path to justice unfolding before her. By early evening, the investigation had reached a crucial phase. Daniel Harper stood beside the large monitor in his private office, reviewing the cross-referenced logs, camera footage, and elevator keycard records alongside Reynolds and the IT team. The timeline Annie had created months ago now formed the backbone of the entire investigation, and every new piece of data seemed to confirm what she had long suspected. Her mother, Sarah Johnson, had been falsely accused. Daniel motioned to Reynolds. "I want a detailed list of everyone with access to the 12th floor VIP suite during the time of the alleged theft. Include management, security, and anyone authorized for override access. We need to know who could have entered the suite when the cameras were offline." Reynolds typed rapidly, pulling records from HR and security. "Yes, sir. We've already narrowed it down to a small list of individuals who had master key privileges during the critical window. This includes the VIP guest services director, the head of security, and a couple of senior housekeeping supervisors. Their keycard usage will be cross-referenced with elevator logs and camera footage." Daniel nodded and then turned to Annie. "Stay close. I need you to watch every detail. If something doesn't match your timeline, you tell us immediately." Annie leaned closer to the monitors. "I noticed that on the day in question, someone used the guest elevator at 2:12, right when my mom was still finishing laundry and cleaning other rooms. Whoever it was, they weren't supposed to be there." Daniel focused on the frame Annie pointed out. The video clearly showed a gloved hand using a master key to access the VIP suite. Reynolds quickly highlighted the timestamp. "That aligns with the period when the cameras reportedly failed," he said. "We can see the footage, but the angle is slightly obscured. Still, it confirms someone else entered the suite." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Exactly. That's what we need. Now trace who had access, and who could have manipulated the logs. Every detail matters." The team continued working late into the evening. The IT staff restored additional camera backups from secondary servers, revealing more frames that confirmed Sarah Johnson's movements. She had followed her normal housekeeping routine without deviation, entering and leaving rooms as scheduled. Elevator logs and keycard entries fully corroborated Annie's original timeline, leaving no room for doubt about her mother's whereabouts. As the verification process unfolded, Reynolds came across another irregularity. "Sir, I've found a pattern. On the day of the alleged theft, the VIP guest services director accessed the suite twice during that 22-minute window when the cameras went offline. There's no recorded reason for these entries." Daniel leaned over the tablet, studying the data. "Cross-reference those keycard times with elevator logs and housekeeping schedules. I want to see exactly where this person was and what they could have accessed." Annie pointed at the screen. "That's exactly what I thought. Whoever entered the VIP suite wasn't my mom. The logs match my timeline, not the original report." Daniel nodded, impressed by her persistence and attention to detail. "Good. This is the proof we need. Keep following the trail, Reynolds. Track every movement, every discrepancy." Hours passed, and the team pieced together a clearer picture of the events. They discovered that the VIP guest services director had manipulated records to create the appearance of Sarah Johnson's presence in the suite. Elevator logs, keycard entries, and camera footage collectively contradicted the original report. Every timestamp aligned with Annie's timeline, demonstrating her mother's innocence beyond doubt. Daniel studied the compiled evidence. "This is extensive. Every detail Annie collected has been validated. Now we need to document everything officially so that it can't be dismissed." He turned to Reynolds. "Prepare a comprehensive report, including all camera footage, keycard logs, elevator records, and receipts. We need to reconstruct the sequence of events hour by hour." "Yes, sir," Reynolds said, already typing notes and organizing the files. Daniel turned back to Annie. "You've done the hard part by collecting the evidence. Now, we ensure it is recognized. This report will be submitted to the legal team, the VIP guest, and the insurance company. Sarah Johnson's innocence will be formally acknowledged. Annie's small hands rested on the edge of the table as she watched the monitors. Do you think they'll believe it this time? She asked. Daniel smiled faintly. They will. The evidence is irrefutable. You've done an extraordinary job, Annie. 3 months of collecting proof, and now it's confirmed by the hotel's own records. The IT team continued restoring all remaining camera footage, ensuring that no angle or timestamp was overlooked. Security personnel reviewed access logs, noting every master key usage and cross-referencing it with Annie's observations. The level of scrutiny was unprecedented, but necessary to ensure that Sarah Johnson would not face any further false accusations. Daniel walked to the large office window and looked out over the city. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the streets of Chicago, but inside the hotel, a new clarity had taken hold. Annie's dedication, combined with Daniel's decisive action, had transformed a stagnant case into a clear path toward justice. Reynolds returned with a final set of cross-referenced records. Mr. Harper, every piece of evidence has been verified. Annie's timeline matches the official logs perfectly. Sarah Johnson could not have entered the VIP suite during the alleged theft window. The original report is demonstrably incorrect. Daniel nodded. Prepare the report for submission immediately. Legal needs it. The insurance company needs it, and will notify the VIP guest. This ends the 3-month delay and restores Sarah Johnson's reputation. Annie's eyes shone with a mixture of relief and pride. She had spent months quietly observing, recording, and analyzing. Now, the adults were finally taking action based on her work. For the first time, she felt that the long hours of effort were truly making a difference. Daniel turned to her. Stay close. We may need your input for any follow-up questions or clarifications. Today, we set the record straight. Your mother's name will be cleared, and no one will be able to question it. Annie nodded, feeling a sense of satisfaction she hadn't felt in months. Her meticulous work had not only brought the truth to light but also ensured that the justice her mother deserved was finally within reach. As the evening approached, the investigation was nearly complete. The hotel's records, Annie's timeline, and the verified footage all aligned. The evidence pointed unequivocally to someone else accessing the VIP suite during the theft window. Sarah Johnson's innocence was undeniable. Daniel Harper looked at Annie, a rare warmth in his eyes. You've shown remarkable intelligence, persistence, and courage. This investigation succeeds because of your work. And now, your mother will have the justice she deserves. Annie smiled faintly. Thank you, sir. I just wanted the truth to be seen. Daniel nodded. And it will. We've ensured that. Today, nothing can stop the facts from speaking for themselves. The city outside continued its evening rhythm, unaware of the quiet triumph taking place inside the Harper Grand Hotel. Within those walls, a meticulous investigation led by a determined child and supported by decisive adult action was restoring justice, correcting months of inaction, and ensuring that Sarah Johnson's name would finally be cleared. For Annie, it was the first step towards seeing her mother vindicated, and the world recognized the truth she had spent months documenting. The Harper Grand Hotel had quieted down after the flurry of activity from the earlier investigation, but inside Daniel Harper's office, the pace had only intensified. Annie sat at the edge of the large mahogany desk, her eyes scanning the monitors and printouts that Reynolds and the team had assembled. Each log, each timestamp, and each restored frame was now part of a detailed map of the day the VIP guest's money and jewelry had gone missing. The evidence overwhelmingly confirmed her mother's innocence, but Daniel knew the next stage would require precision, identifying exactly who had orchestrated the discrepancy in the first place. Reynolds, Daniel said, leaning over the monitors. Compile every instance of master key usage on the 12th floor on that day. Include every elevator log, every camera backup, every keycard swipe, and cross-reference it with the schedule of all senior staff and the VIP guest services director. I want a clear picture of who could have accessed the suite during the camera outage. Yes, sir, Reynolds replied, his fingers moving rapidly over the tablet. We've already narrowed it down to 3 individuals, but I'm cross-checking all secondary logs to be thorough. Daniel turned to Annie. Stay sharp. Watch every detail. If you notice anything unusual, tell us immediately. Your observations have guided us this far. We need them now more than ever. Annie leaned closer, pointing to a frame on the monitor. This is the one, she said. See the hand using the master key? That's exactly when the cameras went offline. My mom isn't there, but someone is entering the suite. Daniel focused on the frame. Yes. Good catch. Reynolds, highlight this and identify all authorized personnel with access to the master key at that exact time. Check if there were any overrides or anomalies in the logs. Reynolds nodded, already typing commands to extract every relevant record. I'm cross-referencing security staff, housekeeping supervisors, and management. We'll know exactly who could have been there within minutes. And cross-referencing. Annie's gaze flicked between the monitors. I remember another detail, she said quietly. The laundry receipt shows my mom signing out at 2:15. That's right in the middle of the window when the original report says she was in the VIP suite. Whoever entered would have had to bypass all service elevator logs too. Daniel's expression hardened. Exactly. That discrepancy is key. Whoever manipulated the report or falsified the timeline used the short camera outage to create the appearance of guilt. Reynolds, include all potential entries through service elevators in the analysis. We need to see the full path. Hours passed with Annie guiding them through her original timeline, noting the details that matched and highlighting those that did not. Reynolds meticulously cross-referenced every log against the official records, highlighting inconsistencies and unusual access patterns. Each anomaly was mapped, time-stamped, and documented in a growing dossier. Finally, Reynolds leaned back, holding a tablet displaying the compiled evidence. Mr. Harper, the data is complete. The timeline matches Annie's observations perfectly. Every elevator log, every keycard swipe, every camera frame aligns with her records. Sarah Johnson was never in the VIP suite during the alleged theft window. Daniel exhaled slowly. Good. Now we move to the next stage. Identify anyone who could have intentionally created this false report. Focus on access, opportunity, and motive. Reynolds nodded. I've already started that. The VIP guest services director had master key access and entered the suite during the outage. Security records show discrepancies in their log entries compared to the elevator timestamps. It looks deliberate. Annie pointed at a small discrepancy on one of the printed logs. This one doesn't match, she said. See here, the keycard shows entry at 2:12, but the elevator log shows the car moving in the opposite direction. Whoever did this didn't follow the normal flow. Daniel examined the printout. Good observation. That indicates manipulation. Reynolds, highlight that and cross-check for any patterns of unusual behavior. I want every anomaly mapped to a person and time-stamped precisely. As the evening deepened, the team worked tirelessly. Daniel reviewed each step, making sure nothing was overlooked. Annie's role was critical. She had noticed details no adult had previously considered, including subtle timing issues, misaligned elevator logs, and discrepancies between camera footage and housekeeping schedules. By nightfall, the compiled analysis was nearly complete. Daniel reviewed the report with Reynolds. This is comprehensive. Every instance of master key usage, every elevator movement, every timestamp discrepancy, and every unusual activity has been documented. We can now identify the individual responsible for fabricating the appearance of Sarah Johnson's presence in the VIP suite. Annie watched the monitors, her small face illuminated by the glow of the screens. Do you think they'll admit it? She asked softly. Daniel turned to her. We're about to give them no choice. The evidence is irrefutable. The timeline, the camera footage, the keycard logs, it all points to someone else. Today, the truth will come out. Reynolds spoke up. Mr. Harper, if we present this evidence formally, it will be impossible for management or the security team to dispute it. We've documented every detail. It's airtight, Daniel nodded. Good. Begin preparing the formal report for legal review and internal audit. Include Annie's timeline as a primary reference, every camera frame, and all cross-verified logs. This must be submitted immediately. No delays. Annie felt a small sense of satisfaction, but she remained focused. There's one more thing, she said. The security camera near the service elevator has a faint frame showing someone leaving with gloves on. That matches the time frame when the suite was accessed without authorization. Daniel leaned closer, examining the frame. Excellent. Reynolds, highlight this in the report. Make a note of the gloves, the timing, and cross-check against all keycard and elevator logs. This could be the final piece tying the unauthorized entry to a specific individual. Reynolds quickly annotated the footage and added it to the dossier. I'll make sure everything is clearly documented for legal and insurance review. Daniel looked at Annie. Your observations have guided this investigation. Without your attention to detail, this would still be unresolved. Thank you for your patience and diligence. Today, your mother's innocence is going to be recognized formally. Annie smiled faintly. I just wanted them to see the truth, she said. Daniel nodded, a sense of quiet satisfaction settling over him. And now, they will. Today, we end 3 months of inaction. The evidence is clear, the timeline is verified, and Sarah Johnson's name will finally be cleared. The city outside continued its evening rhythm, but inside the Harper Grand Hotel, the truth was finally taking shape. With each verified timestamp, each cross-referenced log, and each frame of camera footage, the injustice that had hung over Sarah Johnson for 3 months was unraveling. Annie's meticulous work and Daniel's decisive action had set the stage for a formal resolution, and there was no turning back. By the end of the night, every piece of evidence had been cataloged, analyzed, and verified. Reynolds prepared the final dossier for submission to the legal team and the insurance company. Daniel reviewed it one last time, nodding in satisfaction. Tomorrow, we present this. Sarah Johnson will finally have the recognition she deserves, and whoever tried to manipulate the records will be held accountable. Annie watched him, understanding the magnitude of the moment. The months she had spent quietly observing, recording, and analyzing were culminating in a decisive outcome. For the first time in 3 months, hope had replaced uncertainty. The investigation had reached a point where the truth could no longer be ignored, and justice was within reach. The night had grown quiet outside the Harper Grand Hotel, but inside, Daniel Harper, Annie, and Reynolds were still deep in their work. Every record, every camera feed, and every elevator log had been meticulously reviewed and cross-referenced. The evidence overwhelmingly pointed to Sarah Johnson's innocence, and now the focus had shifted to uncovering who had orchestrated the false accusation and manipulated the reports. Daniel leaned over the tablet, studying the footage and data with intensity. We know who had access during the window the cameras went offline, he said. Now we need to establish motive. Why would someone frame Sarah Johnson? Reynolds, I want a full profile of anyone with master key access, including their recent activities and interactions with the VIP guest. Reynolds tapped rapidly on the tablet. I've already started. The VIP guest services director had unaccounted entries on the keycard logs and unusual elevator usage during the relevant times. Security footage shows gloved hands entering the suite when the cameras were supposedly offline. I'm cross-referencing with their schedule and emails now. Daniel nodded. Good. And include any insurance claims, billing anomalies, or communication with external parties. If someone had a financial incentive, I want to know. We need to understand the full picture. Annie watched closely, pointing at a frame of the camera feed. Look here. The gloves. That's the same frame I saw before. Whoever did this was careful, but not perfect. They didn't consider that I would notice the timing mismatch with the service elevator. Daniel glanced at the monitor. Exactly. Attention to detail is everything. That's what makes your observations so critical. Reynolds continued compiling the data, connecting emails, access logs, and the unusual elevator entries to the VIP guest services director. There's a clear pattern, he said. This person was the only one with access to the master key and knowledge of the VIP suite during the window. Additionally, correspondence with the guest suggests a potential financial incentive. There's a pending insurance claim for the items reported missing. Daniel's eyes narrowed. So the theft wasn't just an accident or misreporting. Someone manipulated the records and created the appearance of Sarah Johnson's guilt to cover a personal or financial interest. Annie leaned closer to the monitors, pointing at the timeline she had drawn months ago. And all the timestamps I recorded match the evidence. My mom never entered the VIP suite. Whoever did this used the camera outage to make it look like she did. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Annie, your work has made this investigation possible. Every discrepancy you noted has now been verified and documented. He paused, looking at the camera feeds. Reynolds, prepare a timeline showing all keycard entries, elevator movements, and camera footage aligned against the original report. Highlight the anomalies and identify who had access during the critical window. Reynolds tapped quickly on his tablet. Already in progress, sir. I'm also creating a separate document detailing potential motives and opportunities for the individual responsible. By morning, we'll have a complete, cohesive report. Daniel turned to Annie. Stay close. We may need your input during the presentation. Your timeline will be the backbone of this evidence. Yes, sir, Annie said, her voice quiet but determined. She had spent months quietly observing and recording, and now her work was finally being recognized in a way that could correct a grave injustice. Hours passed as the team worked through the night. Daniel reviewed each record and compared it to Annie's timeline, verifying the exact time Sarah Johnson had been in specific rooms, the exact moments of keycard access, and the elevator movements. Every detail supported Annie's observations. Reynolds returned with a summary. Mr. Harper, based on the compiled data, Sarah Johnson could not have entered the VIP suite at the time in question. The VIP Guest Services Director is the only individual whose access and actions coincide with the missing items. There's also a potential financial incentive linked to the insurance claim. Daniel studied the report carefully. Prepare everything for legal review. Include the camera footage, keycard logs, elevator records, receipts, and Annie's timeline. I want it clear, irrefutable, and ready to present to the VIP guest and insurance company. Annie pointed at the monitor again. One more thing. The service elevator logs show that during the camera outage, someone traveled in a way that doesn't match normal operations. It lines up perfectly with the time the items went missing. Daniel's eyes sharpened. That's crucial. Reynolds, make sure that frame is highlighted in the report. Include a note explaining how it matches Annie's observations. This will show deliberate manipulation rather than an accident. Reynolds nodded, already annotating the footage. Yes, sir. Everything is being cross-referenced and documented for full clarity. Daniel turned to Annie. You've been critical in guiding this investigation. Without your timeline and observations, the discrepancies could have been overlooked. Your work is the reason we now have a clear path to the truth. Annie's small hands rested on the desk, and she took a deep breath. I just wanted the truth to come out. I wanted them to see that my mom didn't do it. Daniel nodded, a hint of admiration in his eyes. And they will. Tomorrow, we'll present this evidence. Your mother's innocence will finally be recognized, and the person responsible will be exposed. The team continued their work late into the night, finalizing the detailed report and ensuring that every piece of evidence was accounted for. Annie remained vigilant, pointing out details from her notes that could be overlooked. Daniel oversaw every step, ensuring that the investigation would leave no room for doubt. By the early hours of the morning, the complete report was ready. Every keycard entry, every elevator movement, every camera frame, and every receipt had been meticulously documented. Annie's timeline had been fully validated and would serve as the central reference. The anomalies in the original report were undeniable, and the evidence clearly pointed to the VIP Guest Services Director as the individual responsible for manipulating the records. Daniel Harper looked at Annie, who had been quietly observing the process. This is it, he said. Your work has led us here. Today, we restore your mother's name and correct the record. There is no ambiguity. The evidence is conclusive. Annie nodded, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and determination. For the first time in 3 months, it felt as if the weight of the false accusation had begun to lift. The investigation that began with her careful observations, crayon timelines, and meticulous note-taking had finally reached the point where justice could be served. Daniel reviewed the report one last time before preparing to present it. Every detail was aligned, every timestamp verified, and every discrepancy explained. The next step would be to confront the management, legal team, and the VIP guest with the irrefutable evidence. For Annie and her mother, Sarah Johnson, the end of the long 3-month wait for justice was finally in sight. As dawn began to break over the Chicago skyline, Daniel looked at Annie with quiet resolve. "Stay close," he said. "The presentation will be critical. This is the moment where truth confronts inaction, and justice will finally be recognized." Annie smiled faintly. "I'll be ready, sir. My mom deserves this." Daniel nodded. "And she will have it. Today, everything changes. Nothing can stop the truth now." The morning light spilled into Daniel Harper's office, casting a pale glow over the stacks of documents and monitors that detailed the investigation. Annie sat quietly at the edge of the desk, her fingers fidgeting slightly, watching as Reynolds and the IT team finalized the full report. Every elevator log, keycard entry, camera frame, and receipt had been cross-referenced. Every discrepancy noted, and every timeline verified. Today was the day they would confront the evidence, and Daniel knew the stakes were high. He turned to Annie. "Stay close. Your observations have guided us this far. Any small detail you notice during the presentation could be critical." Annie nodded, her eyes still glued to the monitors. "I'll watch everything," she said. "I want them to see the truth." Daniel took a deep breath and addressed Reynolds. "Have the report ready for the legal team, the VIP guest, and insurance. I want it presented in a way that is indisputable. Every timestamp, every frame, every record cross-referenced. This ends the 3-month delay." Reynolds tapped rapidly on his tablet. "Yes, sir. The final compilation is complete. The discrepancies in the original report, the verified timeline, and Annie's observations are all aligned. It's ready for submission." Daniel reviewed the summary, his mind running over each detail. "Good. Let's start with the elevator logs and keycard entries. I want to show the exact window when the theft allegedly happened and who had access during that period." He gestured to Annie. "Walk me through your timeline. Highlight the moments that contradict the original report." Annie took a deep breath and leaned over the monitor. "Okay. At 2:10, my mom, Sarah Johnson, left room 1208. She then signed out laundry at 2:16. The original report says she entered room 1216 at 2:18, but the service elevator logs show she never took that elevator. Cameras confirm she was still in the hallway near the laundry area at 2:12 and 2:14. Whoever entered the VIP suite used a master key while the cameras were offline. My mom was never near that room at that time." Daniel nodded. "Perfect. Reynolds, include those frames from the camera. Highlight the timestamps and the path of the person who actually entered the suite. Make it unmistakable." Reynolds quickly annotated the footage. "Already done, sir. The frames are aligned with the elevator logs, keycard entries, and housekeeping schedules. It's all corroborated." Daniel turned to Annie. "Now, point out the anomalies in the original report. Show them where the inaccuracies created the false impression that your mother was guilty." Annie indicated the printed logs. "The original report lists my mom as the last person entering the VIP suite, but the elevator logs and keycard entries show she never was there. The camera footage confirms she was elsewhere, performing her normal duties. Every timestamp in my timeline matches the verified records, but the report misrepresented her movements." Daniel watched her carefully. "Excellent. That's exactly what we need. Reynolds, prepare a side-by-side comparison of the original report and the verified timeline. Highlight every discrepancy." As the comparison appeared on the monitor, Annie continued. "Also, the service elevator logs show someone traveling in a direction inconsistent with normal housekeeping operations. That's when the VIP guest services director entered the suite with gloves on. That frame matches the window of the theft." Daniel's brow furrowed. "This is the key piece. It shows deliberate manipulation. Reynolds, mark this in the report and include a note explaining the significance. This will demonstrate intentional falsification rather than an accidental error." Reynolds nodded, annotating the frame with precision. "Done, sir. It's highlighted and referenced against all other logs and receipts." Daniel leaned back in his chair. "Now we assemble everything into a coherent presentation. Legal, insurance, and the VIP guest will receive this. I want the story clear. Sarah Johnson was never in the VIP suite during the alleged theft. The original report was inaccurate, and the true sequence of events has been verified. Annie watched the screen as Reynolds combined the timeline, the receipts, keycard logs, and camera footage into a single, chronological report. Each frame of video, each elevator timestamp, each handwritten note from Annie herself was now part of an irrefutable narrative. Daniel turned to her. "You've done something extraordinary. This presentation relies on your observations. Without them, the inconsistencies might have been overlooked. Your mother's innocence rests on this evidence." Annie's hands clenched the edge of the desk. "I just wanted the truth to come out," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "And now it will. Reynolds, ensure the report is secure and ready for formal submission. We'll present it this morning to the legal team, the insurance company, and the VIP guest." No one can dispute it. Hours passed as the team prepared the final presentation. Daniel rehearsed the sequence, checking that each slide, each frame, and each timestamp was clearly annotated. Annie pointed out minor details, ensuring that nothing was left ambiguous. Finally, Daniel called the team together. "We're ready. Every record, every frame, every log has been verified and documented. Sarah Johnson's innocence will be formally recognized, and the individual responsible for the manipulation will be exposed." Annie looked at the monitors one last time. "It all matches," she said. "Everything I collected is here, verified." Daniel smiled faintly. "Exactly. Today, the truth confronts the inaction that has lasted 3 months. Today, justice will be recognized." Reynolds brought the tablet with the compiled report. "Everything is ready, sir. Legal and insurance representatives have been briefed and are prepared to review the evidence. The VIP guest has also been notified of the presentation." Daniel nodded. "Good. Let's move forward. Annie, you've guided us this far. Stay close. We need your observations to answer any questions. This is the moment when everything changes." Annie took a deep breath, feeling the culmination of months of careful observation and meticulous record-keeping. She had spent 3 months quietly ensuring that every detail was captured. Now, the truth was in the hands of those who had the authority to act on it. And for the first time, she felt the weight of relief and anticipation wash over her. As the morning light strengthened, Daniel Harper, Annie, and Reynolds moved to present the irrefutable evidence. Every log, every camera frame, every receipt, and every timestamp told a clear story. Sarah Johnson had followed her schedule faithfully. She had not entered the VIP suite during the theft. The original report was demonstrably incorrect, and the person responsible for the manipulation was now identified. Daniel looked at Annie and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay calm and watch closely. The moment we've prepared for is here. 3 months of waiting, of being ignored, ends today. The truth is about to be revealed, and justice will follow." Annie nodded, her small face determined. For the first time since the incident began, hope felt tangible. The meticulous work she had performed in silence for months was about to correct an injustice, and nothing could stop the truth from coming to light. The conference room was quiet as Daniel Harper, Annie, and Reynolds prepared to present the compiled evidence. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the rows of empty chairs that would soon be filled by the legal team, insurance representatives, and the VIP guest whose suite had been at the center of the incident. Annie clutched her bag tightly, her eyes scanning the monitors that displayed timelines, elevator logs, keycard entries, and camera footage. This was the culmination of months of work, both hers and the hotel team's, and every detail had to be precise. Daniel began the session with a calm, authoritative tone. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we present the verified findings regarding the incident in the 12th floor VIP suite 3 months ago. The purpose of this presentation is to clarify the timeline, identify discrepancies in the original report, and demonstrate the evidence that exonerates Sarah Johnson, our housekeeping staff member who was wrongly implicated." He gestured toward the large monitor displaying the crayon timeline Annie had created. This timeline, compiled over 3 months, meticulously records every action taken by Sarah Johnson on that day. cross-referenced with housekeeping schedules, elevator logs, laundry receipts, and camera footage. Annie Johnson, her daughter, observed and documented the movements of her mother to ensure accuracy. The legal team leaned forward, intrigued by the unusual involvement of a child, while the insurance representatives exchanged subtle glances, clearly curious about the meticulous data displayed on the screen. Daniel continued. As we review the data, please note the points of discrepancy between the original report and the verified records. Annie stepped forward slightly, pointing to the first segment on the monitor. At 2:10, my mom left room 1208, she explained. By 2:16, she had signed out laundry and returned to her assigned rooms. The original report states that she was in the VIP suite at 2:18. This is impossible, as the service elevator logs show she never accessed that elevator, and the camera footage confirms her location elsewhere. Daniel clicked the remote, bringing up side-by-side comparisons of the original report and the verified records. The differences were striking. Keycard entries, elevator logs, and housekeeping schedules all contradicted the assertion that Sarah Johnson had been in the VIP suite during the theft window. Notice here, Daniel continued, pointing to the highlighted frames. The individual entering the VIP suite at the time the items went missing used a master key and gloves. Sarah Johnson had no access to the master key during that period, and all her movements are accounted for elsewhere. A legal representative spoke up. This clearly contradicts the initial accusation. The original report misrepresented her movements. Yes, Daniel confirmed, and these discrepancies were documented in detail in the official verification. Every timestamp, every log entry, and every camera frame has been cross-referenced. There is no ambiguity in the data. Annie pointed to another segment of the timeline. Between 2:12 and 2:18, the service elevator log shows someone traveling in a pattern inconsistent with normal housekeeping operations. The camera footage shows gloves entering the suite while my mom is still elsewhere, cleaning and signing laundry receipts. Daniel turned to Reynolds. Include this in the summary of anomalies. Highlight how these actions coincide with the window of the alleged theft and identify the person with access. Reynolds nodded and tapped rapidly on his tablet, overlaying elevator logs, keycard entries, and camera frames. All anomalies are highlighted and matched to the VIP guest services director, he said. Their access during the critical window aligns with the missing items, suggesting deliberate manipulation of the original report. Daniel addressed the room, voice firm and clear. This presentation is not only about exonerating Sarah Johnson. It is also about accountability. The evidence demonstrates intentional discrepancies that were used to misrepresent her actions. The person responsible will be identified and held accountable. The insurance representatives exchanged glances, taking notes. One asked, "Are we certain there was no opportunity for Sarah Johnson to access the suite during the alleged window?" Daniel pointed to the full cross-referenced timeline. Absolutely. All elevator logs, housekeeping schedules, and camera footage align with Annie's documentation. Sarah Johnson was elsewhere at all times indicated by the original report. Any suggestion of her presence in the VIP suite is demonstrably false. Annie spoke up, her voice steady. I watched her every move, every signature, every room she cleaned, every laundry receipt. It's all here. The logs confirm it. She couldn't have been in that room. Daniel nodded in affirmation. Her observations were crucial. This child's timeline guided our verification and helped us uncover discrepancies that had been ignored for 3 months. Without this meticulous record, the investigation might never have revealed the truth. Reynolds displayed a slide detailing the chain of anomalies linked to the VIP guest services director. This individual had access, the means, and, based on correspondence and insurance filings, a potential financial incentive to create the appearance of theft by another employee. Daniel addressed the group. The evidence is clear and undeniable. Sarah Johnson's innocence is proven, and the manipulations in the original report are now fully documented. We recommend immediate formal acknowledgement of her exoneration and disciplinary action against the individual responsible for the falsification. Annie sat quietly, her hands folded, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. Months of observing, documenting, and compiling had finally led to a moment where justice could be formally recognized. Daniel continued. This case also highlights the importance of verification, transparency, and diligence. A pause in action, even with good intentions, allowed an innocent employee to suffer for months. Today, that wrong is corrected. Today, the evidence is indisputable, and Sarah Johnson's name is cleared. One of the senior managers in the room spoke hesitantly. "Mr. Harper, this is thorough. The timeline, cross-referenced logs, and footage leave no question. It appears the original report was fabricated." "Yes," Daniel said firmly, "and the evidence demonstrates deliberate misrepresentation. This is not a minor administrative error. This is intentional, and it will be treated as such." Annie's eyes flicked toward the screen again. "All of the times I recorded match the evidence," she said. "Everything I noticed is in the report." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've guided us to the truth, Annie. This is the culmination of months of work and careful observation. Your mother's name will finally be restored." The legal team took the report, reviewing every slide and frame. The insurance representatives nodded, clearly convinced by the irrefutable evidence. Even the VIP guest, present via conference call, acknowledged the clarity of the timeline and the accuracy of the verification. Daniel exhaled, a sense of satisfaction settling over him. This is the final step in correcting a 3-month-old injustice. The formal recognition of Sarah Johnson's innocence will be communicated immediately, and appropriate action will follow against those responsible for the manipulation. Annie leaned back slightly, a small smile of relief on her face. "It's finally going to be okay," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes, thanks to your observations, the truth has been uncovered. Today, justice is served, and the record is corrected. No one can dispute it now." The conference room, which had been tense and quiet moments ago, now felt lighter. The months of waiting, observing, and preparing for this moment had led to a decisive outcome. For Annie and Sarah Johnson, the path to vindication had finally been paved with irrefutable evidence, meticulous verification, and the unwavering commitment of those willing to act on the truth. As the room began to clear, Daniel looked down at Annie. "Stay with me. There may be questions, but we have the facts. The truth is clear, and now the world will see it." Annie nodded, her small hands still gripping her bag. 3 months of patience, observation, and careful documentation had culminated in this moment. Finally, the truth had been revealed, and justice would follow. Daniel Harper sat at the head of the conference table, the final report displayed on the monitors behind him. The room was tense, filled with senior management, the legal team, security personnel, and representatives from the insurance company. Annie sat quietly beside Daniel, her hands folded over the bag that had held months of meticulous evidence. Today was the culmination of weeks of work. Not just verifying logs and receipts, but confronting the people responsible and presenting a clear, irrefutable case. "Thank you all for attending," Daniel began, his voice calm but authoritative. "We are here to present the verified findings regarding the incident in the 12th floor VIP suite, which occurred 3 months ago. The investigation has been thorough, meticulous, and comprehensive. Every timestamp, every camera frame, every keycard log, and every housekeeping schedule has been cross-referenced to provide an accurate timeline of events." He gestured to the monitors, which displayed Annie's crayon timeline, now digitized and aligned with the hotel's official records. This timeline, created over months, was initially compiled by Annie Johnson, the daughter of Sarah Johnson, our housekeeping staff member who was wrongly accused. Annie observed her mother's movements, recorded timestamps, and carefully noted every activity relevant to the alleged theft. Daniel clicked the remote, bringing up a side-by-side comparison of the original report and the verified records. The differences were stark. Keycard entries, elevator logs, and camera footage contradicted the original accusation that Sarah Johnson had entered the VIP suite. "Notice here," Daniel continued, pointing at a highlighted section. "The original report claimed Sarah Johnson accessed room 1216 at 2:18. Our verified data, however, shows she was cleaning room 1208 and signing out laundry receipts at 2:16. The elevator logs confirm she never used the guest elevator, and camera footage clearly places her elsewhere." Annie leaned forward slightly, pointing to the monitor. This frame shows someone else entering the VIP suite at 2:12, wearing gloves and using a master key. That's the same window when the cameras were supposedly offline. My mom was never near that room. A legal representative spoke up. It seems clear that the original report was inaccurate. These verified records leave no room for doubt. Daniel nodded. Indeed, the evidence shows that Sarah Johnson was entirely innocent. Every discrepancy in the original report has now been documented, cross-referenced, and verified. The logs, receipts, and camera footage align perfectly with the timeline Annie created. This is not conjecture. This is factual, irrefutable evidence. Reynolds stepped forward, presenting a summary of anomalies linked to the VIP Guest Services Director. All unusual access during the critical window was traced to the VIP Guest Services Director. Their keycard entries, elevator use, and timing of suite access coincide with the window of the theft. Correspondence and insurance filings suggest a potential financial motive for creating the appearance of guilt by another employee. Daniel's gaze was steady. The evidence points directly to this individual. They had access, opportunity, and, based on correspondence, motive. This was a deliberate act to manipulate records and create the false appearance of theft by Sarah Johnson. He turned to the assembled team. This presentation will also serve as a formal record. It is a comprehensive account of the incident, verified by cross-referenced data, and is to be submitted to legal, the insurance company, and the VIP guest. It demonstrates both the innocence of Sarah Johnson and the deliberate discrepancies introduced by the responsible party. Annie watched as the monitors displayed the keycard logs, elevator activity, and camera footage synchronized with her timeline. "Every detail matches," she said softly. "Everything I noticed is here, verified." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Exactly. You've guided this investigation. Your careful observation ensured that nothing was overlooked. Today, justice is about to be recognized." He then addressed the room directly. "We will now go through the sequence of events. Each action by Sarah Johnson is documented and corroborated by the verified records. Following that, we will demonstrate the deliberate entry by the VIP Guest Services Director and highlight the discrepancies in the original report. This evidence will make clear who is responsible and ensure accountability." Reynolds displayed a detailed animation on the monitor, showing elevator movements, keycard swipes, and Sarah Johnson's verified path through the hotel. Camera footage played in sync, confirming her location every minute. The contrast between her verified movements and the original report was undeniable. Daniel continued, "This is the critical moment. Notice how the timeline confirms that Sarah Johnson was never near the VIP suite during the alleged theft. The individual responsible for the falsification had the access and motive to manipulate the perception of events." Annie pointed to another segment of the footage. Here the service elevator moves in a pattern that doesn't match normal housekeeping operations, coinciding exactly with the unauthorized entry into the suite. Daniel's voice was firm. "Exactly. That is the evidence that will establish accountability. It shows a deliberate action rather than an accidental error. Reynolds, ensure this frame and its context are highlighted in the final report." The team worked swiftly, ensuring that each point was documented and every piece of evidence properly annotated. The legal representatives reviewed the timeline, keycard logs, and camera footage, confirming the accuracy of the reconstructed events. The insurance representatives nodded, impressed by the thoroughness and clarity of the evidence. Daniel addressed the assembled group once more. "The culmination of this investigation is clear. Sarah Johnson's innocence is fully verified. The original report was manipulated. The responsible party is identified, and accountability must follow. This is a lesson in diligence, oversight, and the importance of accurate documentation. No employee should be falsely accused, and no record should be taken at face value without verification." Annie's small hands rested on the edge of the desk. "It's finally going to be okay," she said quietly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, it will. Thanks to your observations and meticulous record-keeping, the truth has come to light. Today, Sarah Johnson will be officially exonerated, and the person responsible for the falsification will face the consequences." He turned to Reynolds. "Prepare the formal presentation for immediate distribution to all relevant parties." This report must leave no room for doubt. Reynolds confirmed, typing rapidly. It's ready, sir. Every keycard entry, elevator log, camera frame, and receipt has been verified and documented. The timeline is clear and unassailable. Daniel looked at Annie one last time. You've guided us here. The truth will no longer be ignored. Today, justice prevails. Annie nodded, a faint smile on her face. The months of careful observation, note-taking, and patient documentation had finally led to the moment when her mother's name would be cleared and the manipulations of the past 3 months would be exposed. The conference room, once tense and silent, now felt charged with resolution. Every discrepancy had been accounted for, every timeline verified, and every frame of camera footage aligned. The truth was undeniable, and the stage was set for justice. Daniel Harper, Annie, and Reynolds stood at the center of it all, ready to confront the final steps: formal exoneration of Sarah Johnson and accountability for the individual responsible. The painstaking work, months in the making, had reached its decisive moment, and the results were indisputable. Annie whispered to Daniel, "Is it really over?" Daniel smiled softly. "Not yet, but very soon. The truth is now in our hands, and nothing can stop it from being recognized." For the first time in months, Annie felt a sense of relief. The long wait, the quiet months of observation, and the meticulous collection of evidence had led to this pivotal moment. Sarah Johnson's innocence was finally being acknowledged, and the truth was about to confront those who had manipulated it. The morning sunlight filtered into the Harper Grand Hotel lobby, bringing a sense of quiet determination to the staff as they prepared for the formal presentation of evidence. Daniel Harper, Annie, and Reynolds were already in the conference room, reviewing every detail one last time. The months of meticulous investigation, evidence gathering, and cross-referencing had brought them to this pivotal moment, officially exonerating Sarah Johnson and confronting the deliberate manipulation that had falsely implicated her. Daniel looked at Annie. "Stay close. This presentation is critical. Every observation you made will guide the narrative, and your timeline will be central to proving your mother's innocence." Annie nodded, her hands gripping her bag tightly. She had spent months tracking each movement, every elevator log, and every receipt, and now she could see that her work was finally being recognized in a way that mattered. "I'll be ready," she said softly. Reynolds adjusted the tablet, displaying the compiled data. "Mr. Harper, all discrepancies have been highlighted. The original report has been fully cross-referenced with the verified records. Elevator logs, keycard entries, camera footage, and housekeeping schedules. Every point aligns with Annie's timeline, showing that Sarah Johnson was never near the VIP suite during the alleged theft window." Daniel nodded. "Excellent. Present the sequence chronologically, Reynolds. We'll start with housekeeping schedules, then keycard entries, followed by camera footage, and finally, highlight the anomalies that point to the actual individual responsible." The room began to fill with the legal team, insurance representatives, and a few senior hotel managers. Each person was handed a copy of the timeline and preliminary report. Daniel stood, his presence commanding attention. "Thank you all for coming. Today, we present verified evidence regarding the 12th floor VIP suite incident 3 months ago. This presentation aims to clarify the events, demonstrate discrepancies in the original report, and conclusively prove the innocence of Sarah Johnson." He gestured to the monitors, displaying Annie's timeline digitized and aligned with the hotel's official records. This timeline was meticulously compiled over 3 months by Annie Johnson, the daughter of Sarah Johnson. Annie observed her mother's movements, documented timestamps, and ensured accuracy in recording the sequence of events. Annie stood beside Daniel, her eyes on the monitors. She pointed to the first frame. "At 2:10, my mom left room 1208. By 2:16, she had signed out laundry and was moving between assigned rooms. The original report claimed she entered room 1216 at 2:18. The elevator logs confirm she never took the guest elevator, and cameras show her elsewhere." Daniel clicked to the next slide, showing the side-by-side comparison. The discrepancies were glaring. Every log, receipt, and timestamp contradicted the initial accusation. "Notice the contrast," he explained. "The original report indicated guilt, but our verified data shows innocence. Reynolds brought up the frame, showing a gloved hand using a master key. This individual entered the VIP suite at the time the cameras went offline. Sarah Johnson had no access to the master key. Her movements were fully accounted for elsewhere. A legal representative raised a hand. This seems incontrovertible. The original report was clearly inaccurate. Daniel nodded. Indeed, the evidence is thorough and indisputable. Sarah Johnson's innocence is fully verified. He gestured to Annie. Walk us through any additional anomalies you noticed. Annie indicated another frame. Between 2:12 and 2:18, the service elevator moved in a pattern inconsistent with normal housekeeping. This coincides with the unauthorized entry into the suite. The individual responsible used the window when cameras were offline. Daniel turned to Reynolds. Highlight this in the report and cross-reference with keycard entries. This will demonstrate deliberate action, not a mistake. Reynolds quickly annotated the footage and logs. Done. All anomalies are clearly documented and linked to the VIP Guest Services Director. Daniel addressed the assembled room. The evidence clearly demonstrates that Sarah Johnson was not present during the theft. Every discrepancy, every timestamp, and every log aligns with verified records. The individual responsible for manipulating the report is identified and accountable. Legal, insurance, and management teams can now act based on verified facts. Annie watched closely as the assembled teams reviewed the documentation. Months of careful observation and note-taking had culminated in this decisive moment. Each piece of evidence she had collected was being validated, every timestamp cross-checked, and every camera frame verified. Daniel continued. This case highlights the importance of verification and oversight. A pause in action allowed an innocent employee to suffer. Today, that wrong is corrected and accountability is established. The legal representatives nodded, impressed by the meticulous work, while insurance representatives made notes and prepared to update their claims. Even the VIP guest, attending via conference call, acknowledged the clarity of the evidence and the precision of the reconstructed timeline. Daniel turned to Annie, a rare smile on his face. You've guided this investigation. Your observations made this resolution possible. Today, your mother's name will be formally cleared. Annie's eyes shone. It's finally going to be okay, she whispered. Daniel nodded. Yes, the record will be corrected, the individual responsible held accountable, and your mother's reputation restored. Your work ensured justice was served. The room fell into a focused silence as Reynolds prepared the final report for submission. Every anomaly, every keycard entry, and every camera frame was now formally documented. The narrative was complete, and the truth could no longer be disputed. Daniel looked at Annie. Stay close. We may need your insight for any questions, but the facts speak for themselves. 3 months of waiting ends today. The evidence is clear, and justice will follow. Annie nodded, a quiet pride filling her chest. The months of observation, documenting, and waiting had led to this moment. For Sarah Johnson, her mother, and for the child who had collected the evidence, the path to vindication was finally clear. Outside, the city continued its usual rhythm, but inside the Harper Grand Hotel, the past 3 months of uncertainty and false accusation were being decisively corrected. Daniel, Annie, and Reynolds had ensured that the truth would not only be seen but formally recognized. The exoneration of Sarah Johnson was no longer a possibility. It was an imminent reality, and nothing could reverse it. As the assembled team prepared for the formal acknowledgement, Daniel Harper whispered to Annie, "This is it. Today, the truth prevails." Annie smiled faintly, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. The months of preparation, the careful notes, and unwavering observation were finally about to bring justice to her mother. Today, the story would end with the recognition it deserved. The Harper Grand Hotel conference room had grown quiet in the hours following the presentation of the compiled evidence. Daniel Harper sat at the head of the table, reviewing the final set of verified logs and camera frames on the monitors, while Annie remained at his side, her hands resting on the edge of the desk. The months of meticulous work, every note, every timestamp, every observation had led to this decisive moment. The formal exoneration of Sarah Johnson was imminent, and the room hummed with a sense of anticipation. Daniel addressed the assembled legal team and senior management. The evidence has been fully verified. Sarah Johnson's movements were documented, corroborated by keycard logs, elevator usage, and camera footage. The original report, which implicated her, contained deliberate inaccuracies that misrepresented her actions. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. We are now at a stage where formal acknowledgement is not only appropriate, it is necessary. Annie pointed to the monitors displaying her original timeline alongside the verified hotel records. Every entry here matches, she said. From the time she left room 1208 to the laundry receipts and the elevator logs, everything confirms my mom was never in the VIP suite at the time the money and jewelry were taken. A senior legal counsel nodded, flipping through the printed documents. This cross-referencing is thorough. It leaves no question as to her whereabouts and the sequence of events. The original report was clearly flawed, Daniel continued. Beyond establishing Sarah Johnson's innocence, the investigation has identified the individual who manipulated the records. Access to the master key, the timing of elevator and suite entries, and a potential financial motive all point to the VIP guest services director. The manipulation was deliberate and designed to create the appearance of guilt. Reynolds stepped forward, highlighting a timeline overlay. Here, you can see the exact window of the alleged theft. The keycard entries and elevator logs show movements inconsistent with normal operations. The camera footage confirms unauthorized access by someone other than Sarah Johnson, coinciding precisely with this period. Daniel addressed the group again. This demonstrates clear evidence of intentional falsification. It is now the responsibility of management and legal to act on these findings to ensure accountability, prevent future misconduct, and restore the reputation of Sarah Johnson. Annie watched as Daniel guided the discussion, pointing out each segment of verified footage and cross-referenced timestamp. She could see the adults responding to the clarity of the evidence. Every observation she had made over the past 3 months, every meticulous note, every crayon line in her original timeline was now being recognized as critical to the investigation. A member of the insurance team spoke cautiously. With this documentation, it is evident that the claim against Sarah Johnson was unfounded. The evidence clearly supports her innocence. This should allow for immediate adjustment of any internal and insurance records to reflect this. Daniel nodded firmly. Exactly. This is the purpose of today's review. We are correcting the record, officially acknowledging Sarah Johnson's innocence, and ensuring that the manipulation of the original report is fully recognized. Annie pointed to another highlighted frame. This shows the individual using gloves to enter the VIP suite, while my mom is still on the service elevator, completing her scheduled tasks. That's the key moment. Whoever did this had the means and opportunity. Daniel studied the frame, his expression tight with resolve. Reynolds, annotate this with all corresponding timestamps, keycard swipes, and camera footage. This frame demonstrates deliberate action rather than an error. It will form the core of the accountability documentation. Reynolds nodded, his fingers moving quickly over the tablet. Yes, sir. All details are being logged, timestamped, and cross-referenced to ensure a comprehensive record. Daniel turned to Annie. Your work made this possible. Your observations guided the investigation and highlighted the discrepancies that led to the identification of the responsible party. Without your timeline, these details might have remained obscured. Annie's lips pressed together, a mixture of pride and relief washing over her. I just wanted the truth to come out, she said softly. Daniel nodded. And the truth is now undeniable. Today, your mother's name will be cleared, and the person responsible for the falsification will be held accountable. The legal team reviewed each document carefully. Keycard logs, elevator usage, camera footage, and receipts were compared side by side with Annie's timeline. Every element matched precisely, and the discrepancies from the original report were impossible to dispute. The verification was airtight. Daniel continued. In addition to clearing Sarah Johnson's name, this investigation highlights the importance of thorough verification and oversight. A pause of 3 months allowed an innocent employee to be suspended and misrepresented. Today, we correct that failure. Reynolds displayed the final compiled report, which integrated Annie's observations, all verified hotel records, and camera footage. "This report is comprehensive," he said. "It includes every log, frame, and timestamp. It is ready for formal submission to legal, the insurance company, and the VIP guest." Daniel nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Prepare to deliver it immediately. Formal recognition of Sarah Johnson's innocence must be issued without delay." Annie looked at the monitors one last time. "Everything matches," she said. "All of it proves my mom didn't do anything wrong." Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Exactly. You've ensured that the truth cannot be ignored. Today, justice is not only acknowledged, it is documented, verified, and protected from future dispute." The team spent the next hour ensuring every document was formatted, every frame labeled, and every timeline clearly annotated. Daniel reviewed the final package, satisfied that it presented a complete, unassailable record. The exoneration of Sarah Johnson was now formally supported by indisputable evidence. Finally, Daniel addressed the assembled team. "We will now submit this report to all relevant parties. Legal, insurance, and management will have full access. Sarah Johnson will be officially cleared, and the individual responsible for record manipulation will be held accountable. This ends 3 months of delay and restores integrity to the process." Annie breathed a small sigh of relief. "It's finally going to be okay," she whispered. Daniel nodded, a quiet satisfaction in his eyes. "Yes, the record will be corrected. Your mother's name will be cleared, and the truth will be recognized. This is what persistence and careful observation achieve." Outside, the city continued its steady rhythm. But inside the Harper Grand Hotel, a long-standing injustice was being corrected. Sarah Johnson's reputation, damaged by false accusations, would be restored. The manipulations of the original report were documented, and accountability was established. Annie's meticulous work and Daniel's decisive action had ensured that the truth was undeniable and justice had finally been served. The final hours of the investigation had the weight of resolution in the air. Daniel Harper stood near the large conference table, reviewing the compiled report one last time. Every elevator log, every keycard entry, every camera frame, and every housekeeping schedule had been meticulously verified and cross-referenced with Annie's timeline. The evidence was airtight, irrefutable, and ready to restore Sarah Johnson's name after 3 months of unjust suspension. Annie sat beside him, her small hands folded over her bag, eyes wide with a mixture of anticipation and relief. Daniel turned to the assembled team: legal advisors, insurance representatives, senior management, and security staff. "We have reached the conclusion of our investigation," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Sarah Johnson was falsely accused. The discrepancies in the original report have been verified, and the evidence demonstrates her complete innocence. This timeline, verified by hotel records and camera footage, leaves no doubt." He gestured to the monitor displaying Annie's timeline alongside the verified hotel logs. "This child, Annie Johnson, observed her mother's movements, recorded timestamps, and carefully documented every action relevant to the alleged theft. Her notes formed the basis for verifying the hotel records, which in turn confirmed her mother's innocence." Annie leaned forward, pointing to a segment of the timeline. "At 2:10, my mom left room 1208. By 2:16, she signed out laundry and returned to her assigned rooms. The original report claimed she entered room 1216 at 2:18. The elevator logs and camera footage show she was elsewhere. She couldn't have been in the VIP suite." Daniel nodded. "Exactly. Every record aligns with Annie's observations. The original report's claim that Sarah Johnson had access to the suite during the theft window is demonstrably false." A legal representative spoke up, glancing at the printed report. "The documentation here is thorough. Keycard logs, camera frames, and timestamps all corroborate the verified timeline. There is no question of Sarah Johnson's innocence," Daniel continued. "In addition, the investigation identified the individual responsible for manipulating the original report. The VIP guest services director had access to the master key, was present during the camera outage, and had a potential financial motive linked to insurance claims. The evidence indicates deliberate falsification designed to create the appearance of guilt by another employee. Reynolds stepped forward, showing a slide highlighting the keycard usage and elevator movements. The critical window shows access inconsistent with normal operations. Camera footage, elevator logs, and keycard entries collectively confirm unauthorized entry into the VIP suite by this individual, while Sarah Johnson was elsewhere. Daniel addressed the group again. This is not simply a correction of error. It is the identification of deliberate misconduct. Sarah Johnson's reputation, which suffered due to false accusations, must now be fully restored, and appropriate action must be taken against the responsible party. Annie pointed to another frame, her voice steady. Here the person is entering the VIP suite with gloves on while my mom is still on the service elevator, completing her tasks. That frame shows deliberate manipulation, not a mistake. Daniel looked at her with a quiet smile. Your observations have been instrumental in guiding this investigation. Without your careful notes and timeline, the discrepancies might never have been identified. Annie exhaled slowly. I just wanted them to see the truth, she whispered. Daniel turned back to the monitors. And the truth is now undeniable. Every log, every receipt, and every camera frame confirms Sarah Johnson's innocence. The timeline and supporting evidence will be submitted to legal, insurance, and management teams immediately for formal acknowledgement and action. The senior management team reviewed the final presentation, nodding as each slide displayed verified data. Elevator logs, keycard entries, and housekeeping schedules all aligned with Annie's observations. The original report's inaccuracies were clearly highlighted, and the evidence implicating the VIP guest services director as the responsible party was unmistakable. Daniel continued. This investigation also serves as a reminder. Diligence and verification are critical. The pause in action over 3 months allowed an innocent employee to be unfairly suspended. Today, we correct that failure and ensure accountability is established. Reynolds displayed the final report, fully annotated with Annie's timeline, verified logs, camera frames, and keycard entries. This report is ready for submission, sir. Every discrepancy is documented, every action verified, and every timestamp cross-referenced. Daniel nodded. Excellent. Deliver it immediately. Sarah Johnson must be formally exonerated today, and the individual responsible must face appropriate consequences. This concludes 3 months of waiting, uncertainty, and injustice. Annie looked at the monitors one last time, feeling a swell of pride. Everything I collected matches, she said. All of it proves my mom didn't do anything wrong. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. And now everyone else will see it too. Your meticulous work has ensured that the truth cannot be ignored. Today, justice is served, and Sarah Johnson's name is restored. The assembled team began preparing the formal acknowledgement. Letters were drafted, reports finalized, and the VIP guest and insurance representatives were briefed. Daniel ensured that every piece of evidence was clearly referenced and that the record left no room for dispute. Annie sat quietly, absorbing the moment. Months of observation, careful note-taking, and patience were culminating in a decisive victory for her mother. The burden that had weighed on Sarah Johnson for 3 months, suspension, false accusation, and uncertainty was about to be lifted. Daniel addressed the team one final time. Submit the report, notify all parties, and ensure Sarah Johnson's exoneration is recognized. Accountability will follow, and the integrity of the investigation will be preserved. This is how we ensure justice prevails, no matter how long the delay. The final slides showed the complete timeline, camera frames, elevator logs, keycard swipes, and receipts, all aligned perfectly. Annie's observations, initially dismissed, had now become the central evidence validating Sarah Johnson's innocence. As the formal submissions were sent out and emails delivered, Daniel turned to Annie. Stay with me. This is the moment when all your effort is recognized and your mother's name is cleared. Annie nodded, a faint smile breaking across her face. The months of meticulous work, dedication, and unwavering focus had led to this moment. For Sarah Johnson, justice was no longer delayed. For Annie, her perseverance had ensured that the truth would finally be acknowledged, and the long months of uncertainty and fear could finally end. Outside the Harper Grand Hotel, the city continued its rhythm. oblivious to the quiet triumph inside. Inside, a small victory had been won, a child's determination, a fatherly figure's decisive action, and a team's commitment to truth had restored justice. Sarah Johnson's innocence had been proven, the manipulations of the original report exposed, and accountability established. For Annie and her mother, the long journey had finally reached its resolution, bringing relief, closure, and the certainty that the truth had prevailed. The story highlights the power of perseverance, careful observation, and the courage to stand up for the truth. It teaches that justice is not always immediate, but with patience, diligence, and integrity, the truth can prevail. Even in the face of authority, obstacles, or prolonged inaction, one's commitment to fairness and honesty can correct wrongs and protect the innocent. It also emphasizes the importance of accountability, showing that those who manipulate or act unjustly will eventually be exposed when evidence and truth are pursued. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.